You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Hello there, IELTS students. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And this one is going to be all about conclusions. And the reason why I want to do conclusions is because I get so many emails from students asking, should I put my conclusion in the introduction, in the conclusion, during the body paragraphs? So it's kind of tricky, not just with the opinion, but just problems with it in general. And even students not even realizing they've got problems with the conclusion, as in they don't ask for help, but when they correct their essays, I can see they clearly need some guidance there. So what we'll do first is we'll look at what a conclusion isn't. Okay, sometimes it's the easiest way to describe something by sharing what it isn't, and then we'll describe what it is and how to do it, and then of course give some examples. So a conclusion is not a place for new arguments. Okay, generally speaking, we do not enter fresh arguments that just pop into our head. The best thing to do with these arguments or ideas that pop into our head when we're writing the conclusion is just to throw them out of the window and ignore them. Okay? And this goes back to being sort of like having control of your mind, avoiding this monkey mind experience, just doing whatever pops into your head. So a good sound, focused mind will be able to do this a lot easier. Okay, so also we don't introduce fresh evidence into the argument. So this is similar to before, but more detailed. Okay, so we don't put fresh evidence in. Now, if possible, we should avoid repeating what we've already said. Okay, so it's kind of like a catch-22. Catch-22 is where if you do something, it's bad for you, and if you don't do something, it's bad for you. Okay? And in this case, I've said it's a catch-22 because before I said we don't add new stuff, and now I've said you don't repeat stuff. So, what are you supposed to be doing? First of all, I'll say the other stuff we have to avoid is we have to avoid what we've already argued. We have to avoid the logic we've already used before, and we have to avoid the have evidence we've used previously as well. So that's pretty much what the conclusion is not. Okay, so you might be kind of confused. We can't put new arguments in here, and we can't repeat what we've already said. So what are we supposed to be doing with this conclusion? Well, what you need to do, okay, and talking like in a big sort of like academic writing point of view, okay, and then I'll adapt it to IELTS. But what you need to do is to state, in your conclusion, you need to state what you did not know when you started your writing. Okay, this is a pure academic conclusion. And obviously this comes from the old manuscripts where you write introduction, like operations, is it operations, or sort of like results, introduction, experiments, results, and then conclusion. Okay, and basically from a scientific point of view, you're stating what you didn't know at the beginning. Okay, and of course this isn't really the case for IELTS, okay, because you're not going to make a massive discovery at the end of 40 minutes writing. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to adapt this philosophy and adapt it to the IELTS exam. So we will state what the reader did not know when they started reading your essay. And in most cases, this would probably be your opinion if we've set out our essay correctly. Okay? Now, some tutors say we should put the opinion at first in the introduction. That's okay. I prefer leaving it to the end because your opinion should be becoming gradually clearer as we progress through the essay. Okay? And maybe as well, your opinion shouldn't be given until we've looked at both sides of the argument if you've got to write a discursive essay. Okay, so one thing, the conclusion will put your opinion, okay, and then second thing, here is a tip, okay, if you can put a short sentence in there, okay, this delivers a crisp finish. It just shows that your thoughts have been condensed. It's a succinct way to finish the essay. And succinct and concise writing is what is necessary. Now, the second tip, you've probably heard me say this before, and this is definitely related to IELTS, okay? Because we all know that in the IELTS exam, we're going to get points for grammatical range and accuracy. Grammatical range, how many structures, or one facet of grammatical range is how many structures we used. If we wrote it all in the present simple, we're going to be doing shockingly. However, if we use a range of different structures, we're going to increase our chances considerably. So, an easy way to kind of like pick up some points is just to put a small prediction into the conclusion. Okay, and this can be also a good alternative for the last sentence. So we might say a short sentence, which might be our opinion, just crystal clear. Then the next one, the second sentence, could be something like, it is predicted that this trend of global warming will continue long into the future unless governments take decisive action. Full stop. Yeah? Or it is predicted that parents and children will continue to use electronic devices to communicate, and this can only strengthen bonds in the future. Full stop. Okay, so 2 ways to finish there. Let's look at 2 examples of those 2 ways in a... let's have a look at 2 conclusions, I want you to decide whether these conclusions are good or bad. I'll give you a background, some background about the essay. So the essay is basically talking about positive, negative aspects of globalization, asks for your opinion. The essay writer has written about it being positive. He says that there's more ideas nowadays, the spread of these ideas. Globalization also spreads the language, and gives some good examples on the culture as well of different countries. Okay, so basically, what is what did he reach afterwards? What did the writer reach? What conclusion after writing all of this? So here's the first one. In conclusion, globalization is undoubtedly a positive driver in disseminating ideas, language, and culture. It is predicted that governments will enact further measures to facilitate its progress. Okay, so here, because we've got it quite succinctly, he said a positive driver. Okay, and because it's written in this way, it doesn't mean he doesn't need to say, in conclusion, I strongly believe, I firmly believe, it's just there stated, and it's crystal clear that is the position. There's no way that the reader will understand that as not being an opinion. Okay? Then the second part of that conclusion, it says it is predicted that governments will enact further measures to facilitate its progress. It is predicted. Okay, that's the tense, a new tense that we probably didn't include in the essay, in the body paragraphs. We didn't include it before. Let's put it in this one for IELTS, 4 points. Okay? So, now, I did say at the beginning that if possible, we're going to avoid repetition. I mean, how many different words do you know for language or for ideas? So in some cases, it's not necessary. Okay, or some cases it's extremely difficult and probably not worth it, and we're probably going to overcomplicate and overcomplicate the writing and confuse the reader by looking for synonyms if they don't exist. Secondly, there's no new arguments there. There's no fresh evidence. But what we have done is basically pushed it into a more positive light. And we've pushed the ideas and what we were talking about before. We've pushed it into an crystal clear position that we've taken. We've said it's undoubtedly a positive driver in disseminating ideas, language and culture. So there's no shadow of a doubt that that is the position of the writer. Okay, let's have a look at a second one. Second conclusion. In sum, I think it is more convincing that globalization is a necessary form to spread ideas, language as well as culture. It will start to be more tolerated in the future as it becomes more common. In the future, I sincerely hope the governments will make effective measures to improve the progress of globalization. So here we've got a little bit of repetition. It's just with phrases in the future. Also, because the writing ability is not as good as the first one, the writer has to say, I think it is, okay, which sounds a little bit basic. It could have at least improved that to I strongly believe, or I firmly believe. It is more convincing. That's not too coherent. Or he could even say, therefore, I am convinced that globalization is a necessary form to spread ideas, language as well as culture. So it's not as strong, is it? It's saying it's necessary, whereas the other one said it's undoubtedly a positive driver. So there's a big difference there in how convinced the writer is, and it shows basically in the writing. Also, I mentioned before that we can put maybe a sentence on about the future. This writer put 2 sentences in there about the future. And they were soft sentences as well, like soft and weak. It will also start to be more tolerated in the future. Okay, problem with this one, it will also start to be more tolerated in the future as it becomes more common. It's quite unclear as well. Like, what is it? And I assume you're talking about marketing or globalization, sorry. But I shouldn't have to make assumptions. I shouldn't be... this is called reader strain, when the reader has to work to determine what you're saying, what the writer is saying. It will also start to be more tolerated. How could we say this better? Instead of also, we could say furthermore. Furthermore, global marketing will undoubtedly be more tolerated in the future as it becomes more widespread. Sounds better than more common, doesn't it? So 2 errors, a few errors there. What else could we say about this? Fortunately, we didn't mention any of the arguments mentioned before, so that's good. We didn't put any new arguments. Maybe we extended it a bit too much with the new arguments, talking with 2 sentences about the future. But apart from that, it could be improved a lot. Yeah, it could be, there's considerable room for improvement there. Sorry. So, here's just a summary for you. We're coming to the end of the podcast. So avoid the repetition, avoid fresh arguments, avoid new arguments, avoid fresh evidence. State your opinion, if possible. Write it in such a way that it strongly and clearly and undoubtedly shows that you're in favour of this, or strongly against it, or whatever. If you're worried that you haven't expressed it clearly enough, put I strongly believe, I firmly believe. And just try to remember that the idea of a conclusion comes from an academic report, and it's basically that you need to state what the reader or the writer did not state when they started writing, or state what they... Oh, I'm just totally mincing it up now, sorry. So you need to basically state what the writer or the reader did not know at the beginning when they started your writing. Okay, hopefully it would become slowly more clearer as you progress through your writing, but the main idea is like, this is the conclusion after considering all the evidence. This is my new position. Okay, and this is strong academic writing. So, if you want more advice on how to do this, and if you're serious about improving, then you can have a look at sentenceguide.com and get some feedback for your essays. Have a look at the courses there. If you're in a rush, or if you want to prepare yourself sensibly for the exam, have a look there. Also, jump onto Facebook, leave me some comments, some likes, and if you're really kind, if you're feeling really generous, I'd love an iTunes review. That would be fantastic. Okay, all the best with your IELTS prep, and yeah, let me know how it's going. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.